welcome back to the Soul Fresh Podcast. I'm your host, BK.
And I'm your host, J. Steve.
Oh, man, J. Steve, we got a great episode today.
Yes.
Today we're going to be honoring some heroes in something that happened right here in the state of Georgia back in 1963. Now, as we know, 1963 was an epic year of historic challenges, historic accomplishments, and also tragedy. So we've got Martin Luther King in 1963 giving his world famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Also, we had Marvin Gaye and Martha Wells leading the top of the charts for Motown. You had young Stevie Wonder, 13 years old, with the Beatles, coming directly right on the scene, and that's when we created that thing called Beatlemania. But also in that same year, that's when JFK was assassinated.
Yep.
And but just before JFK was assassinated, he drafted the Civil Rights Act, and luckily in 1964, that's when it got passed. And of course, you know, we call that the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Yep.
So, but one thing that we want to discuss is something that, or highlight, is something that major happened and heroic happened, but also it showed one of the challenges that we were dealing with in this country. And we've got somebody special to talk about something that happened in 1963 in Americus, Georgia. We're going to title this episode in representation of Black History Month, Leesburg Stockade Stolen Girls. Let's get to it. Let's go ahead and break this episode down, but I feel it's befitting for my co-host to introduce our guests to the table.
Without further ado, we present the great woman and overall human being, Tiena Fletcher, to the Soul Fresh Podcast.
Ms. Fletcher, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, and thank you very much for having me here today.
Okay, so this is something we wanted to highlight for Black History Month. And like I say, I appreciate you, we appreciate you coming on and talking about this, because I know this is a memory that probably won't ever go away, and it was something that just tragic happened, but it also showed the heroism that a lot of you women, or at the time were girls, were dealing with. And so, but what I want to do is start from the beginning. So instead of let's getting right into what happened to get all the girls arrested, what happened that day? What was the climate like in 1963 in Americus, Georgia? And what was the beginning of that day like? Like, what led you to go to Martin Theater?
Well, the climate was hot, it was warm, and it was a lot of mass meetings being held at that time. We would have mass meetings from one black church to the next. And you never knew the night or the day that we were having one. Somebody would come around and knock on the door, knock, 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 mass meeting tonight, knock, 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 mass meeting, and hand you a flyer, and you knew you were having a mass meeting. My sister had already gone to jail, maybe a week and a half, and that was a mass meeting that night.
She went to jail for protesting?
Protesting, trying to integrate the Martin Theater.
Okay.
That's what we were trying to do. But many times we didn't make it that far before we were jailed.
Right.
I remember that day when they came around and said it was going to be a mass meeting tonight at Bethesda Baptist Church, which was my daddy's church.
Right.
My daddy pastored that church. And I knew I was going. I knew my mother said, please don't go to jail. Please, your sister's already, please don't. But I knew I was going to jail that night.
So it was
and
already...
I went to the mass meeting and got caught up in all of the hype. If you've ever witnessed or heard about these meetings, you would have speakers, Willie Ricks, and I could just name some of the others that would come in and speak and tell you about some of the atrocities that were happening downtown or heard over in Leesburg or heard over in such and such town. and you would sing these songs. And just like in slavery time when Master didn't know the Underground Railroad, that they were singing these songs and they meant something. Mm. It meant steal away, steal away. It meant they were about to take a trip on the Underground Railroad. And all these things were signals. Well, it's the same true with our civil rights songs. I mean, it didn't matter whether you could sing or not, but we'd go to these meetings and it was hot, the windows would be open, and people would be sitting up in the windows, the churches were packed, and we'd have songs like, oh, freedom, oh, freedom. That, it's for you, it's for me, and before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free and be free. That was the song that I marched out of Bethesda, walked uptown, and was met with force from the police and went to jail.
Now, quick question. Why was it that the Leesburg police were brought in to something that was happening?
They weren't. The Leesburg police only became involved after Americus was such a hotbed. We had filled all the jails up. Not only did us girls go to jail, young boys our same age were over in other jails. Adults were in jail. We marched in such numbers. The jails were full. They didn't have any place to put us. So they reached out to surrounding counties and asked, could they hold some prisoners? They rounded up all of the girls between 12 and 15 or 16, and that's when they sent us down to Leesburg, to the Leesburg stockade. Now, I wasn't the first girl to get in there, go to that jail. They were gradually sending us there. And when I went to that jail, the day that I was thrown in that jail, there were probably 5 or 10 other girls already there. And then they kept sending the rest of us.
And your sister was already there too as well, right?
My sister went with me. She was in the Americus jail. And I remember when they locked me up, somebody hollered, Juanita, your sister in here. And she hollered at me and we started talking. They put me in a hot box, a sweat box. But the next morning when we were let out, we were put on the back of this truck and we were taken to Leesburg. And that's when we went to the Leesburg stockade.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, did some of the girls went to, I guess, Dawson first for overnight? Now, what was the purpose of going to Dawson, then to Leesburg?
Well, they were trying to put all the girls of a certain age.
Okay.
And reason that we were called stolen.
Because
they took us from the Dawson jail or from the Americus City jail, which I went from Americus City jail, which really was a room upstairs in the courthouse that was double locked and barred. But we went from being incarcerated in Americus and was taken to Leesburg. They called us the stolen girls because they never told our parents where we were.
That's crazy, yeah.
They had to find us. And they went through all kind of legal challenges and whatever to find where we were. And they had taken us out of county down to Leesburg.
Now, what's the distance between Leesburg and Americus?
It's about 30 minutes.
Ooh, yeah.
But that's where we were.
So how long did it take for someone, I know not initially everyone getting out, but how long did it take for someone to find out that y'all were in Leesburg stockade?
I don't know, really, to be honest, or remember exactly who found out first, but I know my daddy Ariel Freeman, and at that time he was president of the NAACP. He was pounding on people's doors, and he had a certain amount of friends in that town, being the man that he was. He had, he talked to the whites, he talked to the blacks. He was a kind of a liaison. But I can remember when they found out, that's when the young reporter came down.
From SNCC?
That's right. And he gave his pictures to Essence.
Right.
But that's when he came down to investigate and to see if we really, and he found us. He was there. And he literally laid eyes on us for the first time. And he took that snapshot, and you might wonder, well, why on all the girls that were in the stockade? Because I can remember they saying, hush, hush, when he came to the window. And that was the guard that was on the other side. He could see through the bar. We don't want Pops to know that he's here. Hush, hush. Some of us got to act natural, act normal. So some of the girls stayed on the wall, stayed on the side, walked around and milled around so that he took those pictures. He took pictures of the toilet. He went around to other windows, bars where he could see. And in that facility, he took those pictures of that dirty shower head that hardly worked and just barely dripped. That's where he did, and he was scared to death. When he told his story, he said, as a young reporter, I didn't know if I was gonna get shot or not. He was scared to death, but he took the pictures that he did, and he got the pictures of the girls that could be that were there, and that would come up, and he left.
So, do us a favor and describe the conditions and what was going through your head. Now, how old were you then? 12, 13?
I was 13.
All right. So, for a 13-year-old, how were you processing, and what were some of the conditions and some of the things that you were going through during that whole month and a half?
Well, I know that I was miserable. It wasn't like home. We got 4 hamburgers a day to eat all at one time, and they were those Crystal White Castle burgers. I mean, you got them all at one time and at one time a day.
And you had to make them stretch throughout the whole day.
And you had to make them stretch. You eat like maybe 1 in the morning and 1 the other time or whatever. And we originally had these cotton thin mattresses to sleep on. But somehow one of them caught a fire. I don't know how. I really don't. Nobody knows. I don't think the girls had matches. Some of us assume that the guard threw a match in on these cotton mattresses. They ended up having to open the door, pull all the mattresses out, wash the room down, and some of us were gonna run. And I remember hearing the words, "Run, nigga, run!" And then somebody said, "No, he gonna shoot you. You'll get shot. Don't run." And so we all just huddled together, and when they swept the cell out or the stockade out, we literally then, after that, had to sleep on concrete floors. Now, I wasn't there for the whole stretch of, some girls said they were there 60 days. They say, I don't know. I can't attest to that. But my sister and I, for the time that we were in there, we know that the toilets filled up. If you look at the picture, there's in essence, it's the June issue of, I think, I have 2006, I believe.
Yeah, 2006.
Yeah.
If you look at the pictures that were taken, the toilet filled up and was unoperable. I'll never forget the stench of how horrible it smelled. what we would do to comfort ourselves is to cluster together and sing spirituals. We had several girls in there who were, not that we all weren't church, but they were in the Holiness Church, and they start singing all kinds of gospel songs, and we would just, or we tell jokes, or we try to do anything to pass the time away. But I will tell you, the thing that got to me, girls were in there from 12 to 15 or 16. Some of them were having their menstrual cycles. We weren't given anything to aid us when that happened. They were using basically clothes off of their backs to try to get through their condition.
That's horrible.
Unsanitary conditions that, now, grant you, there were boys in the other jails that were dealing with issues. There were people in other, don't get me wrong, but for teenage girls to be put through this sort of horrific conditions, just inhuman. And some of us gradually start getting out. My sister and I got out, and another one of the principal's daughter got out before some of the others. Because as the NAACP, and then when they found out where we were and was trying to petition to get us out of jail, and they wanted to charge them $2 a day for every day that we were in the jail cells. And
Hold on, just so they were trying to charge the NAACP.
they were trying to charge our parents to get us out.
And that was and that was what I had a question about that. I'm trying to figure out. I feel like you unlawfully were taken, and of course I understand the times, and it's the South. But how were some girls able to leave, and all of y'all not saying, "Okay, we found y'all. Get all these girls out of here"? And how did that make y'all feel when some were leaving and I'm still here?
Well, so my dad was a assistant principal and a teacher in the school systems. Deloach's dad, one of the other girls, was a principal, and their jobs were being threatened.
Oh.
The NAACP did not want to compound the issues, one thing on another. And I'll be honest, I don't know if my dad just didn't go on and pay it to get us home.
Right.
But the kids were boycotting the schools because we were in jail.
Right.
They thought that by letting us go and getting us out of jail, because I don't know if they paid or not, they was trying to charge or did charge $2 a day. I was so young, some of that just didn't register with me. You understand? I knew the facts, but I wasn't all into it every day knowing, well, yeah, Daddy paid such and such. I was just so glad to get home, you know. I didn't ask a lot of questions. But they thought by letting us out of jail, it would encourage all the other black students to go to school.
Right, stop boycotting.
Guess what? It didn't work.
Probably got worse, didn't it?
They just didn't come back to school until everybody was out.
Right.
They said, when everybody's out, we'll come back to school. And that's what happened.
Now, was this the police chief or the sheriff that was locking y'all up? Ross Chambliss and Fred Chappell.
Fred Chappell.
So, so how did everybody after the? We don't want to. We still going to go back, but how was the community afterwards towards Fred Chappell?
Oh, he's always been a racist. I mean, bigot. I mean, outright. I mean, didn't hide it. I mean, you know. And everybody had the same sentiment against him as they always.
So his reputation had already preceded himself. Pretty much.
Oh, definitely. And you know, it's just.
So for you personally, how long did it take you to? I know you're never. Even today, you're probably not over that whole thing mentally. But how long did it take you to get back to some sense of normalcy within yourself after going through that traumatic experience?
Well, and I look back on it now, and it resonates with me more as an adult than it probably did as a kid. Kids are resilient, they say.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize at the time. I know we were trying to march so that we would be able to go to Martin Theater. We'd be able to go to Walgreens and the soda fountain and sit and have a soda, which we couldn't do. We'd be able to do a lot of things. It would maybe keep us from going down the back alley to the doctor's office, colored only back here and whites, going to the front. Or it would, just any sort of things. I thought that I knew at the time when we was marching, but I really didn't realize the impact of what we did to the overall movement. Mm-hmm. See, I look at what we did, what the people in Little Rock did, what the people in all these places, what we were doing. You had the Martin Luther Kings and the John Lewises and the this. I love them. They're my idols. But they could not have pushed the movement by themselves.
Right.
It took the foot soldiers and the day-to-day compounding and the people going to jail and dealing with all of this bigotry and hatred and still pushing for the movement to advance and for us to be where we are now. And that's what people don't understand, is that the price we paid for us to be where we are now is not cheap, and it wasn't free. Mm-hmm. Hadn't always been this way where you can walk in. Now, we still have some hidden racism. We still have a long ways to go. But you can walk in pretty much any front door you want, go to this, decide you want to go to this school. Now, it may keep you out of certain schools because of grades or whatever. But pretty much, things are pretty liberal.
Right. They still keep you out of some of the country clubs, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it seems like in 63 was that year that it feel like the South kind of said we fed up. Because
yes.
I saw where a lot of it started in 61 where, the protesting. But it seems like in 63 for the state of Georgia, it spread like wildfire because they were doing it in Savannah, they were doing it in Columbus, they were doing it in Atlanta, they were doing it in Americus, they were doing it in Albany, and it just became like a wildfire where like, look, we're not taking this no more. And if you kind of look at it, how the country just came together and said we fed up with it, we got a little bit of change and stepping on the necks of Washington to get that bill passed for 64.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like, the work that y'all were doing, and I know you probably just feel a special kind of way to feel that you're a part of that.
Yes.
That you had something to do with the Civil Rights Act being passed. So I want to make one more statement. So just a question. So SNCC, I guess that was the paper or the news organization that had the photo, but Senator William Harris, he got involved, the senator out of New Jersey. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like if these white individuals hadn't got involved, that y'all would have been in there a lot longer than those 45 days or longer?
I don't know, but I know it helped. It did help, but I don't think we would have been there longer. But I think it helped the movement in general, to know that we had some backing high up and that we had some backing from some whites.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you, whites have notoriously, some of them have stood up. And when we get into talking about the integration of the schools, I can tell you many times of some things that have happened to whites just because they stood up.
For black people.
Right.
But they did get involved, and I think it was the push from the citizens and the students and the boycotting and all that really pushed the grid. But it was important. It was important that people in Washington start standing up for us.
Right. So just to wrap that up, historically, in the beginning, I see they only focused on just the 15 or the girls that were in the picture. So how did the 33 as a whole kind of get left out of the story in the beginning? I see that they're in the story now, but I think...
Well, let me tell you. They were in the story from the beginning. But there is, and I'm going to be honest, there is a group out of Americus that want to say if you weren't in the picture, you weren't there.
Oh yeah, that's...
Yeah,
Okay?
oh, yeah.
And we have been having issues with this group. And every time I was a Black History speaker on base several years ago. I was a Black History speaker at the college in Macon, Macon State of the year. And they would go so far as to call and say, you got somebody that is not telling the truth, and you need to check your facts, and you know, and the reporter that came down to Americus and did the Essence article, she actually went to the court files and stuff and documentation and spoke to people and documented the story very well. Now, granted, you may have been here this day, and then none of us got out until they started getting. Juanita, Carolyn, and I were probably the first ones to get out. And the others gradually, you know, whatever. But granted, I can remember when some others came in that door after me, okay, up to 33 girls.
Right.
Okay. And if you were in there one day, 1 hour, you were a part of the Leesburg story.
Exactly.
Right.
And I saw the names, maybe not the names that they listed originally, but I saw the names that were in that court document. And even I saw your name, and it had your age, 13 years old, Robertina Freeman, you know? And so, I mean, I can't imagine, you know, just going through that. And that's why we kind of really want to highlight you specifically, but also at the end, we will highlight all the other brave, heroic women that experienced that tragedy.
Just to segue into the next segment, spinning off of that tragic situation, as BK put it, the next year, I guess you could say it was bittersweet because in 1964, you and 2 other Black students were the first to integrate Americus High School. It was a big thing. It was a great feat that was accomplished for doing that, but at the same time, it came with a lot of degradation and hate and vitriol from not just the students, but from teachers and staff members as well. So can you kind of give that part of your story as well, how it happened when you first integrated Americus High School?
There again, SCLC came around, knocking on doors, knock, knock, knock. We're looking for some students that will help integrate Americus High School. Your name was one of the names that was given to us. Will you go? I said, yeah, I'll go. What in the world I was thinking about?
They kind of make me feel like I ain't gonna do it, but call Tina.
Yeah,
Tina
call
will do it.
She'll do it.
But I don't know. I was a preacher's daughter, and I will tell you, probably integrating that school was probably, to me, put more scars on me, even more so than Leesburg Stockade. I grew up in the church, and I always was taught that there was one God. And they go to church, I go to church. We got God that's in the universe. I mean, that's not in the universe. I mean, he's everywhere, you know. And I've always taught the song, you know that song that said, Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world. Red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in his sight. Jesus loved the little children. How could I go as a child of God and be mistreated? The first day that we were taken to school after we had enrolled, there were 4 of us.
Dobbs, Wiggins.
Every white person in town must have been at that school. As far as your eyes could see was cars and white folks.
Wow.
Bricks started hitting that car, and I never forget that feeling. I literally thought I was gonna die. I literally thought we were gonna die in that car that day.
Were your parents with you that day?
No. We had a driver that drove us to school, the Bonham Funeral Home.
No police escort or anything?
And so you was with, continue telling us about that experience. You were with Dobbs Wiggins.
Yeah, Dobbs Wiggins.
David Bell.
And
Jewel Wise.
Yeah, Jewel Wise. And myself, and there was one other person in the car. They wrote the class of 65 about him. He wrote it. And I'm in that book, excerpt of my story.
You talking about
okay.
Jim Ott movie?
No,
or Greg, you talking about the Greg Whitcamper.
Greg Whitcamper.
Yeah,
Thank
Greg
you.
Whitcamper.
Greg Whitcamper. He was sitting in the front seat.
Okay.
White guy.
So that's where Greg came
from. They used to beat Greg every day.
They used to beat him every day.
Beat him every day. Every day he walked out of school because he said that they were a nigger lover. He was from Carnegie Farms, which they had bombed prior to that because blacks and whites lived out there next to each other every day. They hated people on Carnegie Farms. And he was from there. His parents was from there. And, we all got along. His dad, my dad, we knew each other. And Greg was in the car with us. But they sped us around to the principal's office, which was in a trailer. And that was after they had that fire. Earlier that year, the principal's office was in a trailer in the back of what was remaining of the school. And they were working on it. But some of the school still was okay. But he had to wait until he got all the parents off campus and all of that. And then that's when they gave us our schedule and sent us to class. We walked down the halls to go to class. We got spat on, knocked against the lockers, just pushed, called names. And the teachers would be standing in the door and they would turn their heads as if nothing had happened. We complained about it. So they decided we had to go to class 5 minutes before or 5 minutes after if the teacher forgot, so that we wouldn't be in the hall with the other students. We were given lockers, but if we put our books in the lockers, they either were missing, torn up, written on, whatever. So you had a chemistry book, a literature book, a math book, whatever book that history book. You had to carry your books around all day long, from one class to the other.
So nobody would keep taking them or vandalizing them and stuff like that.
That's right. Those heavy books. And we didn't have all them book bags and stuff that you have now. So I'm just saying, it was just horrible. It was didn't have anybody to be with. Many of those were in 11th grade. I was in the 10th grade. But we would meet for lunch. Or when they decided they wanted to let us out of school an hour earlier, our what they call homeroom period. They used to have an extra period called homeroom period in the day so that we wouldn't be dispersed among all the other students. We would meet at the end of the campus and walk up the street together toward home. And then one day, my dad came to my room and he said, "Girl," he said, "the others have called and they said they're going back. They can't take it anymore." He said, "Whatever you do, I'll support you." He came back and he said, "What you decided to do?" And I told him, "You didn't raise no chicken. I am gonna stay." And I can remember for days, for months, I didn't have anybody to walk off that campus with me. I didn't know if they had truly withdrawn from school and gone to the other school, back to the black school. But I felt like I was the only child left in that school by myself for months. But I got my lesson. Mm-hmm. I made the Beta Club. I got my lesson in the black school. I got my lesson in the white school. And I graduated. Now, it was 3 of us that graduated, but 2 others that didn't integrate the school came the next year in my class. Mm-hmm. Bessie Walton, Emery Kegler. Right. And the 3 of us were the first 3 to graduate from Americus High.
Mm. So how long total was it you were just by yourself that first year?
You know, memory is a thing when you're trying to look back and that young. I knew it had to be at least 3 months.
So not during that whole time, you know, like in the movies, they always make it where some white ally comes out of nowhere and helps you and say, you know, I'll be your friend, I got you, you know, how they do it in the movies. Did you ever have any allies during that time?
Well, let me tell you, when I graduated from Americus High, I hated that school. I hated it. It put such a scar on me, the way I was treated. Mind you, went to Mercer University, got a scholarship in the 4th class to help integrate Mercer University, blah, 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 blah. Just in life in general, God put me in places and opened doors for me, and I kept going. But my sister became the principal of the very school I integrated, where I was hurt, and begged me to come back for a Black History program that she had instituted in the school. I didn't want to go, and she begged me, and I finally went. I never forget, I spoke to the group, and I talked about how bad it was and how we were treated and everything. And that was a lady that made herself way to the stage, and she asked my sister, could she say something? Her name was Parker, Linda Parker. And she said, they call me Robertina, even though my name is pronounced Robertina, and said, Robertina does not remember me. I was in her class of 67. She may not remember me. And I remember that Parker name, but probably didn't know her as we were adults. And she said, I didn't spit on her. I didn't hit her. I didn't knock her down. There were plenty of days I found myself getting up off the ground. She said, but I'm guilty, just as guilty, because I did not stand up for her. I sat there and watched what people were doing to her. And this day, I want to apologize to her, and I want to hold her hand and sing our alma mater. And she came up to me and grabbed my hand, and that was a healing moment for me. It was like God had brought me to that point where I needed healing. Because I didn't want to have anything to do. Of course, I was going on with my life, and I was moving up, going to pharmacy school, getting director of pharmacy, working and in a white environment and all that. Knew how to pretty much temper my attitude. But that was a moment in my life that I realized healing had to come forth. I had to do that in order for me to be a productive citizen going forward and do some of the things that I might want to do in life. I got a letter from another student in my class. Her name is Day. And she says the same thing. I really wish I had stood up for you the years that you were at Americus High. But let me jump back a little bit. After I was in the school, I got locked up again while I was in the 10th grade at the school at the end of the year. I was seeing this, you know how you call yourself got a little boyfriend. I was seeing this fella, Alex Brown, from over at the Black High School. And he had just got his license, and he was going to come pick me up one Sunday, and we were just going to ride this time. Little did I know, I did know it. I knew people were watching our house. I knew that they followed us many times, and I knew that because there were many times that our picture window in our house got broken out. And my dad had always told us, if you ever hear noise, if ever you hear a loud sound, a gun or whatever, hit the floor, go low. And so one time a brick came through the picture window, crash, you know, hit the floor. That's what he would always holler. We would slide out of bed, hit the floor, till they came and determined everything was all right. Police would come because they wouldn't do anything.
Right.
But, you know, some of our black NAACP people, SCLC people would, you know, come clear the ground. Then a bullet hole came through that one night, hit the floor. We did the same thing, same scenario. Then woke up one morning and KKK was painted on our driveway in big letters, you know. Just all sorts of things like that. But they followed me, and they stopped us and gave us a ticket. And I was scared as I don't know what. Did I go home and tell my dad? No. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know how I was going. I just didn't know what. And that next day, Fortson, the lawyer uptown, called my dad and said, you better go get your daughter. They about to go to the high school and they about to lock her up. Go get her before they do that, and you take her in. So Dad called me over to the school. He had somebody come pick me up, and they let me go. Mm-hmm. And I went over to the school, and he said, tell me what happened. And I handed him that piece of paper with the ticket and thing on it, and I didn't know really what the charges were. I was just scared, and I cried, and I said, you know, I don't know. They stopped us and blah 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 and all this stuff. And then he said, show me what they gave you. But Attorney Fortson had already told them what they had charged me for, and they had charged us with fornication, which is an old law on the Georgia state books, and they could jail you and sentence you for that. And Judge Smith, well, my dad took me in, let me say this, and they fingerprinted me and all this, and I was in jail for 3 days because of that. It was close to the end of the year, and finals were about to take place. And my mom came to the jailhouse to visit me, and she brought me my books because she said, maybe you can study. But they put me in a cell across from some men. They were black men, and they were just constantly looking over there, hollering obscenities and stuff. And I curled up into the corner of that jail cell. I never forget this. And as if they couldn't see me, you know, because I was just so horrible. I mean, that was a time that I was just horrified. I don't know how else to put it, but my mama came to see me and she said, your dad's working on getting you out. Here your books if you want to try to study and get your mind off things. But they working on it. He's coming. I never forget when she's about to leave, and I begged her, I said, Mama, please don't leave me here. Just don't. But she didn't have a choice because they told her she had to go. Mm-hmm. And they got me out, and my dad appealed my case all the way. The Judge Smith sentenced me to reform school till I was 18. And my dad and them had the case appealed all the way up to the state Supreme Court, and it was reversed. But I was on what they call probation for a long time. So they did some things with me in the summertime, not to let me be home when they were marching and going on again, because he didn't want me to get in trouble again and go before Judge Smith, and he carry out his sentence against me. So, but those things were the things that really scarred me and made me just feel so bitter against the high school and what was going on there with me. But as I say, I'm a child of God, love the Lord, can't hold bitterness, and have to have forgiveness.
And see, that's what I want to get into next, and then Steve's going to segue into something else about you. So, you know me, I always call you the top dog, you know, boss lady.
Yeah.
So what I want to know from you is everything you've been through, that story that you just told us, and everything that you went through with integrating the school, just, you have every reason to have a chip on your shoulder. But even just being a black woman, a young black woman, and I didn't even know that, but not even getting support from black men to recognize that this is a child in jail, and now you just completely feel totally isolated. White folks don't like you. Black men ain't showing you no love, and it's like now you just feel alone. So, but you navigated and obviously overcame because you became a successful black woman. And I want to know, how did you navigate through these white spaces? Because a lot of the things that you did when you were coming up, you were the only white. Yeah. You know, pharmacy, going to college. So how did you go and move through these spaces and not have a chip on your shoulder or not have any type of just anger
and animosity
animosity towards being in these spaces, all the way to the school board, to college? And he's gonna get into some of those things that he's gonna highlight, but I need to know that. I want to know.
Well, my dad, being the man that he is or was, preaching, I mean, he always professed love and forgiveness, and I had to take a break. I went to Mercer. We were alienated from the school by the ass, black kids stuck together, same thing, racism, you know, all of that. But then I went to Xavier University. I wanted to be something. I wanted to be somebody. My daddy always preached that education was the key, was one of the keys for us to rise up above what was happening to us. He wanted all of his children to be educated, and he sent us to school, and he supported us in every way that he could. And he ingrained that in me, and I wanted to be successful. Little did I know that I would later on in life be placed, doors would be open for me. But every time a door opened, you got to be ready to step into it. And I wanted to ready myself to be. So I went to pharmacy school. I felt like they made a good education. I really was supposed to go to medical school. But I decided to get married. And I needed to fall back on something else, so I decided to go to pharmacy school. I researched it and went to Xavier University. And that was positive for me. Being on a historical HBCU campus did more for me then at that point in my life that you can ever imagine. Even though they had a lot of Catholics and some of my teachers, Dr. Carmichael, and some of those, but that campus was black. And they wrapped their arms around us, and they ensured that we were successful. I have never seen teachers that were so invested into their student body to ensure that you got what you needed to make the mark. And I just started eating it up. Those years at Xavier, those 4 years I was there, it meant the world to me.
Because you felt love from
I
your
felt
people
loved.
for once. Everyone. Everywhere you went, you finally
I felt love in elementary school when I was over in the black school. Yeah, I was in junior high school, but when I went to the white school and when I went to college the first time, I didn't feel. There were one or two people, Dean Hendricks at Mercer and some of the other ones, I can name, but it wasn't enough of them to make you really feel like you were a part of the school or the environment.
Right.
And that you were worthy. Xavier turned that around for me.
Safe space.
Yes, safe space. Exactly what it is. And that's what our schools do for us. They say that when we integrated, we lost something. And that nurturing is what we lost. Because you go in a classroom now, even with the black teachers, you don't get what I got when I was in elementary school and was being pushed along by different teachers and whatever. It's totally different experience. But then I guess I expected that at the high school, Americus High. I didn't get it. College, I didn't really get it, even though I value my experience at Mercer. It wasn't it wasn't anything like what I got at an HBCU.
Right.
And you kind of took my question that I was going to spin off onto that, which was, how was Mercer different from Americus High, coming from that environment and then going straight to Mercer University? And you said you were the 4th year of it just being integrated as well. I wanted to know, how were you treated for the totality, I guess you would say, of your experience at Mercer University?
We weren't overtly spat on under breath. They called us niggas. Okay. We weren't overtly knocked and hit. These were more adult kids. I mean, sophisticated, law school, some of them pre-med, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm just saying different things. You found some students that were just nice to you, the hippies. They down to earth and they're going to be nice to you. But we pretty much stuck together. On weekends, we were together. We'd go out to Fort Valley to one of our friends' parents' home, and she would let us have parties in her basement. We stuck together. And I will say, the first class had Sam on it. Second class had 5 students. The next class had 9 students. My class had 11 students. And the number of black students kept growing and growing at Mercer. And I was happy to be a part of the first black student union that we formed at Mercer. So that was that blackness that we were together pushing for certain things, and didn't have, like I say, the physical abuse. But then sometimes that mental abuse can be just as
psychological.
Right.
As damaging.
Yes, I understand.
You mentioned something about integration, and I actually had a question about that. In your opinion, do you feel that was the best thing? I know there's always two subjects that we should have just stayed where we were, or versus I felt like we needed that access to have exposure to, I guess, some people say better books, better learning environment. But then again, some people say that's where we lost it, is when we chose to leave our safe space.
Well, I would say that if we had stayed in our safe space, we wouldn't have access to the better books, the better chemistry labs, the better equipment,
right,
the better things that would push us intellectually to learn on a higher level.
Right.
Okay, because separate but equal is not equal. Nowhere. I don't care. Somebody's going to get the better break. Okay. But if you want to ensure that you're kind of in the same environment, getting the same thing, then you need to integrate. So, yes, I think integration is where we need it to go. A hard road, but it's the way we need to go. But how do we bring back that nurturing environment? I don't know. I know we get it at home many times from grandmamas and whatever, but we got 2 working families now, 2 working parents. You don't have that parent at home when you come. You don't have. It's a lot. The whole world, society has changed, and we have to change with it.
Yeah, because the family dynamic isn't how it was when you were coming
That's
up,
right.
or even when me and him were coming up. Because I tell him all the time, BK, I believe we're the last of the generation that were raised by the old school traditional values of black families and communities. And I feel like a lot of that is lost as well these days, like you just said. And BK, I believe you wanna go ahead and get back to the other 33 that were involved, or you want to go ahead and move on to the next part and then speak upon all of the different things she's accomplished?
You know I can't hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do that. So before we move on to the next segment, I do want to go ahead and I guess we could say give a shout out, but also recognize and call out some of the names just by honoring them for Black History Month, going through that experience of the Leesburg Stockade Stolen Girls. So we've got Carol Barner C. Excuse me if I mess up some of the names. Carol Barner C. C.A., Lorena Barnum, Gloria Breedlove, Pearl Brown, Bobby Jean Butts, Agnes Carter, Patty Jean Collier, Maddie Crittenden, Barbara Jean Daniels, Gloria Dean, Carolyn DeLoach, Diane Dorsey, Juanita Freeman, the legendary Robertina Freeman Fletcher, Henrietta Fuller, Shirley Ann Green, Verna Hollis, Yvette Hose, Mary Frances Jackson, Vertus Jackson, Dorothy Jones, Emma Jean Jones, Melinda Jones Williams, Emmarine Kegler, Barbara Ann Peterson, Annie Lou Reagans, Judith Reed, Laura Ruff, Sandra Russell, Willie Mae Smith, Eliza Thomas, Billy Joe Thornton, Lulu M. Westbrook, Ozelia Whitehead, and Carrie Mae Williams. We honor y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
One quick question I wanted to add also. This was kind of like a last minute thing I came up with. I know you've done a lot in your life and you've accomplished a lot. You've had people in your corner that have been there and had your back in situations that you've been through, but you had a rock that was in your life for a while in the name of, in form and fashion, of Donnie Fletcher, your husband. How much was he able to help you build upon the great woman you already were and help you achieve the accomplishments that you did, when also at the same time he was trying to build his legacy?
He was a very supportive husband, father, friend. Donnie didn't mind me stepping out and being in the forefront. Mm-hmm. And he just said, "That's my wife." And for that, I was just awed, and it allowed me to spread my wings. But I will say that after finishing pharmacy school and getting a job at the Houston Medical Center, I decided that I looked around and all the whites had master's degrees and this degree, and something in my mind said, sooner or later, they're going to put a white person above you. Charlie Hall was the administrator that put me in that position. I said, "You better go back to school." And so that's one of the things that he allowed me to do, Donnie Fletcher, which he understood what I was saying. I got to go back to school. Because if I don't get some degrees, whatever, even though I may be doing the job, mm-hmm. I'm going to look up one day and I won't have this job. So I went to school and got my MSA, turned around, got my MBA, things that would help me in my profession because I was managing multi-million-dollar budgets, need to know how to do spreadsheets. So my MBA, I mean, unquestionably, it helped me a lot. When I looked around, I had this same grades that some of the others had. So it wasn't a matter. And I've had several of the white doctors that tried to go to administration and tried to get me fired. But let me tell you, when you know your craft, and the pharmacy profession depends a lot on legal ramification in law, and you know your law, you know your stuff, you treat people right, have faith in God, and have that support at home to listen to you, bounce things off, you can cross those hurdles. And I can remember all through my career, I go to staff meetings. I was the only department head. I was the first black department head at House of Medical Center.
You got a lot of firsts.
But I held my own.
Didn't put that on the accolade list.
Yeah, right.
You said what?
I said you got a lot of firsts.
I missed that one.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know you were the first of that one as well.
I was the first at House of Medical Center. And then when I wanted to step out, now I've had some people at the hospital, white, that encouraged me. Because my CEO or the administrator of the hospital was in my corner, when I wanted to run for the Board of Education, there again, Tiena Fletcher there pushed me up.
And once again, first black woman. Nope, person.
No, I
no,
wasn't.
Woman.
No.
You weren't?
There was one other.
Okay.
Before me. I like to keep it real, keep it honest.
Okay.
She was appointed, and her name escapes me. I know I can see her house right now. She lived up on King Drive, on that corner house. She was appointed, but when it came time for re-election, she lost. I ran.
So you're the first black elected.
Right, because she was an interim.
Thank you.
That's what first black elected.
Elected female. Okay.
That's what it was.
Because even Reverend Kirby was appointed, and I think when he ran, he didn't win. But that was a hard election, boy. But there were people at the hospital that were committed to allow me to leave the hospital and serve. I did my job now. And there were many times I stayed at the hospital till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, making sure my job was done, so that when I had to go to these student hearings, some of these board meetings that were in the middle of the day, on the days that we met, when I had to do that, I was allowed to do it.
Or get your son out of trouble because he was talking too much.
But, and so then, when I lost that election and lost it by like 8 votes or 9 votes, little did I know, here's another door about to be open for me. Governor Perdue asked me to sit on the DHR board before they reorganized into DHS.
Yes, right.
And he brought me in as the vice chair. Then when they reorganized and I became chairman in 2009, I was the first black female to ever hold that position in the state of Georgia. And I served on the DHS board for 20 years and just resigned this past December.
Yep.
Wrote the governor a letter and resigned. So I have had a pretty successful career, but I think God put you in places at times to do certain things. Like on the Board of Education, I can remember when they put this little black girl out of school because we had a zero tolerance weapon rule at the board. Zero tolerance. thinking you brought a weapon to school, something, you know, they gonna put you out of school. And this little black girl bought this little knife that her daddy had got in Marlboro or whatever. They used to send these little pocket knives out or whatever. Mm-hmm. She brought it to school. He is a show and whatever. They put the girl out of school. And I said, you know, elementary school. I said, we cannot afford. Sometimes you got to rehabilitate kids or readjust. But you cannot be putting these elementary school kids out of school. Mm-hmm. They put her out of school. I objected. But then we got her over in Reverend Reed School. Mm-hmm. I called her mama and said, the girl need to be in school. I paid for her uniform, sent her over to Reverend Reed School. And she did. They changed the rule not too many months after that, because little white girl, she brought a weapon to school. And I looked at him and I said, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But she's Mr. So-and-so's child.
No, zero tolerance, right? Zero tolerance.
They changed the rule, but they invited all the black kids that they had put out, went back through the elementary road and everything. This little particular girl, mama didn't want her to come back. But they did check. But I'm saying, we got the rule changed.
Yeah. But
they no longer would put elementary school kids out of school.
But it's 2024, and we're still dealing with that, where black kids are getting different punishments. Suspended or different punishments as their counterparts. So still fighting the good fight.
Where's the justice?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And you got to have somebody there that sees it and call it like it is. Mm-hmm. You know, I feel like I was on the DHS board. I remember when they wanted to close the community centers down here and cut out federal money that was coming free to us in the state of Georgia, because they felt like these community centers were giving out birth control and condoms and whatever. They didn't have any facts. Mm. They just thought that, you know, that's what they were doing down here. You know, and they had one of those centers over there by Reverend Sales House over in Sewell's Park. They used to have a community center. And lo and behold, you know, I told them, we got to put this money back, and brought it out in public that we are turning down federal dollars that are free that will help our children. We got that money put back in the budget. Mm. So I'm saying, I haven't been one of them people that got in the newspaper and ran it down the road and screamed and hollered. But being present, and that's one of our problems. We wait to things happen and then we want to do something about it. We got to be at the table. Being at the table means that we got to think that we need to run for office. We can't even hardly get anybody to run for the county commissioner's office. Mm. Or Houston Porter was the only and the black that was on the county commission that we ever had in our sky. It has to change. We got to change. Our mentality has to change. Some of us on a different socioeconomic level, but we ain't no billionaires. We ain't rich. We have to be able to come and sit at the table to help make these changes.
Yeah, because it doesn't make any sense to still be having people in office for 40 years, you know. And I'm going to go ahead and just say it, keep it real. You know, we got the same sheriff. Mm-hmm. We had the same county clerk for 40-some years. 81. We had the same county commissioner for 40-some years. And he just finally retired. We got the same person who do the tags. Mm-hmm. What's his name? Kashinka. Mm-hmm. I swear.
Where's the diversity?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's the diversity?
Yeah. But then again,
it's just like in our government.
Here's the thing. It goes back to what you said. We have to be willing to want to sit at the table, and we need these people to run for these seats, because three of those positions I just named, they hardly ever been challenged.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Maybe one time in the 80s and maybe one time in like early 2000s. But if you look at how many times there was an election and they were just independent, nobody running, or not independent, I'm sorry, incumbent.
Right. No competition.
No competition.
Right.
Because people just scared to step up and at least try. like you said, just be present and be present.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like you're saying, that's a big issue as well. And I don't know if it's because we feel like we're gonna fail, or we just don't want to take on the task, or I think a lot of times the problem is with our community these days, it's not my responsibility.
Mm-hmm. And I feel so good about Patrick that won the mayor's position.
Mm-hmm.
She put herself out there.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to LaRonda Patrick.
Yeah.
Go ahead and get her.
Yeah,
Yolanda for the money. I love it. So I'm just saying, we got to put ourselves out there on the line and do more. And I hope Black History Month, during this month, people will look at people that are in the struggle, been in the struggle, look at their lives, see how, they've done, and decide that we need to keep marching.
Gotcha.
We need to keep marching. We need to keep marching to ensure that our books are not shut out the libraries and that Black history is being told. My story needs to be told. That's why when y'all asked me to do this, I said, yes, my story needs to be told. Not just here, it needs to be told. Because people need to realize, we got more work to do. We got a lot of work to do. Mm-hmm. And we can't do it unless we come to the table.
Right. And see, before we wrap it up, Steve's going to go over some of your accolades, but I also want to go ahead and say thank you for coming on. Thank you for telling your story. Thank you for your leadership, your wisdom, your fortitude to keep fighting the good fight and the fight and all the struggles that you had to go through.
Thank you. I will.
And I know you spoke on some of these already, but just to run them down because it was a few. Former director of pharmacy, housing and healthcare for 38 years. Chairwoman, Georgia Department of Human Services, Warner Robins, Georgia, which you said you resigned from in December of this past year. Member of the American Society of Health System Pharmacists, Georgia Society of Health System Pharmacists, Fort Valley chapter of the Links Incorporated, former president, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, Fort Valley, Georgia. And then your school accolades: bachelor's in biology and chemistry, Mercer University; bachelor's in pharmacy, Xavier University, New Orleans, Louisiana; MSA and MBA from Georgia College and State University, Millersville, Georgia; Hall of Fame Celebration Wall for unforgettable unsung heroes of the civil rights movement by the AKA sorority. And also, could you clear this one up for me, please? Sumter County, I had you on the board.
I am the treasurer. I'm on the board, but I am the treasurer for the Americus Sumter County Movement Remembered Committee, which we have been awarded about $2.5 million to restore the colored hospital in my hometown, Americus, Georgia, which was one of the first and only facility that trained Black doctors and nurses, or they were able to work there. And then I'm going to tell you what happened as history. And this is the City of Americus then built the main hospital, the White Hospital, or Americus Sumter County Hospital. They put a colored wing on there, and then they refused to let the Black doctors and nurses practice in that wing. We lost our middle class, upper class Black doctors echelon in America because those people had to move to other cities where they could practice.
Wow. Another nugget of hidden.
It's just so much stuff out there.
And that's the thing. It's so much out there that we just don't know about, and people don't get a chance to hear about it. And that's why I'm glad, like BK said, thank you for coming on to this platform. Because I guarantee you, 85% of the people that's going to watch this, they don't know this story. They probably not heard not one inkling of a bit of your story. And that's why we're so happy that we're able to present it to the people and that you so eloquently delivered it to us.
So, what's so special about this guest and you?
Well, truth be told, ladies and gentlemen, Tiena Fletcher is my mother. I was raised by a wonderful, gracious woman. So all of the good charm and everything that I do have, I got that from her. I owe her so much. It could never be explained or talked about or ever come to an end of how much I owe her my life and existence. If it wasn't for her, or let her tell, if it wasn't for her coworker who told her I was born, then I probably wouldn't be here sitting in this chair right now, because unbeknownst to a lot of people, I was adopted by this woman, and my father at the time, Jerry Boykin. So they say there are bad stories about adoptions and things like that, and they are. You see a lot of bad cases, but God had me in place that morning when I was born, that day, and said, hey, I know this great woman who went through a whole bunch of stuff that needs to love on somebody who he can't get the love from properly that he needs. But I'm going to give it to him. So I'm always going to love my mother and appreciate her for doing everything for me in her power that she could possibly do. Even though I was a knucklehead a lot of times. I done some dumb stuff. But she still loves me the same, and I love her with everything in my being.
I love you, and I love my other sons too.
Oh yeah, shout out. We got Tron Hill.
T Hill in the house.
On the production.
Yeah.
I wish I put a third camera up. We would have flipped it back to Tron Hill over here on the production. So shout out to Tron Hill for producing this show. That's my band 50 Grand. As you know, and anybody who knows us, we are the original trio.
Yes.
And of course we've been around this wonderful lady since day one. I can't.
Sandbox.
I don't. Yeah, Sandbox. I can't go back no further. So as you can see, we are the way we are because of who we've been surrounded with. The Clarence Williams of our life, the Tiena Fletchers and the Donnie Fletchers,
The Virgie Harrises.
Yeah, the Virgie Harrises. Yes. Oh my gosh, you know. And so we had a village of people that
cared about
didn't even have to really say nothing. It was just watching how they move.
And it will keep you in line.
Yeah, and don't let me leave out my folks, the John Kings and the Ernestine Kings, and all the people that lived in our community that showed how we should move. And also you mentioned the name, and let's not leave him out as well. So we also have his father, Jerry Boykin, who is the first black
graduate
black
of the
man,
Walter
black
F. George
person.
School of Law.
Right.
Yeah, first black graduate, and also the first black attorney to practice law in Houston County.
Right.
Am I correct? So, I mean,
Come from good stock.
Yeah, we surrounded by greatness. So, so once again, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. And did you have 5 words for her?
No, I didn't.
We gonna make up something off the spot. You got. I get 2. I got 2 in my head.
You got 2?
Yeah, but I'm gonna probably say the same 2 that you already thinking of.
All right, see, Mama, this is what we used to do this. We stopped doing this for a while, actually.
We started doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we did.
We used to do the book.
We used to do the book of the month, to read the book. So, we used to ask our guests 5 words. We just say 5 words.
Don't think about it.
And don't think about the word. Just the first word that comes to your brain after we say a word, that's what we want you to say. And that's what we call our 5 words. We used to do this at the end of every podcast. So, BK's gonna give you his 2, and then I'll give you 3.
And I'm gonna say my 2 because I know he's gonna say one of mine, so I'm gonna get it out first. AKA
Dominant.
Okay.
Americus.
Hometown.
Bethesda Baptist Church.
Spiritual growth. Beginnings. You said 1 word, right?
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. We understand. Warner Robins.
Maturity.
Family.
Love.
So, thank you for joining us on this special episode. We celebrating Black History Month, and our guest, Miss Tiena Fletcher, for joining us. And we want to just keep highlighting other moments in history, especially history, not just in Georgia, but all over. But we definitely wanted to talk about something that we didn't feel like a lot of people knew about. And we really, I can't tell you how much I appreciate her coming on and joining us. And so, like we always say, I'm your host, BK.
And I'm your host, J. Steve.
Peace.